What's going on, guys? I just finished watching the Buskin and Jimmy Wong presentation at PAX covering all of the things that we have coming up for Riftbound, and there is quite a lot of really cool stuff to go through. So we're going to cover the new champion legends that have been announced, all 12 for the set. We're going to cover the upcoming events between now and May of next year, and we're going to cover the upcoming sets that they've announced, sets 3, 4, and 5. So this is all pretty exciting. Let's not waste any time and let's just get into it. So off the bat, here are our 12 champions for the set. I will go individually for each of them. The image isn't super high quality, unfortunately, so we'll have to make do with what we got. But I'll zoom in, don't worry about the one I'm covering there. So we have Azir, Draven, Ezreal, Fiora, Jax, Rumble, Rek'Sai, Ornn, Sivir, Lucian, Renata-Glasc, and Irelia. So we already knew the effects of Azir, Draven, Sivir, and Renata-Glasc, but let's take another look at them just so we can kind of go over them each individually all here together. Okay, so starting with Azir, this one is in the Calm and Order domains. What I've talked about is weird because we have the Sun Disk in red, for example, and the seals for Orange have Azir and the Sun Disk on them, and then he's in green and yellow. Weird, whatever. So Azir says that your Sand Soldiers have Weapon Master, which means you can equip gear to them for 1 power less, which is pretty useful. His main activated ability, though, is that you can pay 1 and tap him to play a 2 Might Sand Soldier unit token to your base, specifically your base, so a little bit less flexibility than Viktor, but a little bit stronger of a unit, and it has the Weapon Master ability. On top of that, you can only use this if you've played an equipment this turn. So effectively, you're going to build an army and supply them with weapons and then send them into battle for you. It is a very cool and thematic way to design this champion. I really like it. On to Draven, this time in the Fury and Chaos domains, the one that we've had Annie and Jinx in so far. So this is Draven, Glorious Executioner. When you win a combat, draw a card. So again, very cool. As we've seen in these colors before, it's a lot of value generation. You're just going to keep building up the card advantage as much as you can. You're going to use those cards as combat tricks to win more combats going forward, and it just kind of feeds itself over and over. A very aggressive deck style that really rewards combat-based playstyle. Ezreal was our first new one, though he was leaked a few days ago. He is in the Mind and Chaos domain, which means that he's the same one that we had Teemo in previously. This is my favorite color combination. I'm hoping for something a little bit different, because while I like the cards in the Teemo deck a lot, I'm not thrilled about the hidden playstyle, and I would like to make use of the other spells. So, Ezreal, Prodigal Explorer, has the tap and reaction ability, draw 1. You can only use this if you've chosen enemy units and or gear twice this turn with spells or unit abilities. So this is a really cool value generator, especially in these colors because they have so much targeting. Of note, the only things that they have that target multiple units right now is Singularity. That is the only spell in either color, as far as I know, that lets you get this effect off with just 1 card. But otherwise, you have things like Stupefy that are just very cheap cantrips that allow you to draw on their own, and you can kind of double dip on the value with Ezreal there. So you play cheap targeting spells, you get to draw an extra card each turn, and that allows you to play more cheap targeting spells. Functionally, it's very similar to Draven actually, just one is combat focused and the other is spell focused. Our next champion legend is Fiora in the Body and Order domains, so it's competing with Sett and Garen in the leader position. It's just competing with Sett though. So Fiora Grand Duelist, when one of your units becomes mighty, you may exhaust me to channel 1 rune Exhausted. A unit is mighty while it has at least 5 might. So in this deck, you're going to play a lot of things that will buff and or spend buffs so that you can keep fluctuating back and forth between that 4 and 5 range if possible, or you can just use things like Back to Back or Back for Glory, which allows you to give a temporary stat boost to your cards, and then at the end of the turn, they'll drop back down on their own naturally. There's a ton of ways to proc this in the orange and yellow colors, and so this is a very effective ramping legend. Now, if you're like me, you're going to compare this to Volibear right away, who is in the red and orange domains. However, this differs a little bit. Because we're not relying on playing units that are mighty, and we have access to buffing smaller units, we can get this off a lot faster typically. On top of that, while Volibear is pretty much limited to activating his effect on your own turn, Fiora allows you to activate it on either player's turn. And yes, you can only use it on 1 turn in 1 turn rotation because she exhausts herself, but the flexibility to use it on your opponent's turn is really nice as well. All in all, a very cool representation of ramp, and again, we're focusing on abilities and spells that boost it rather than the main units themselves like we do in Volibear. Our next legend is in the Calm and Body domains, so competing with Master Yi and Lee Sin. This one has to be pretty good because those are very popular leaders. So Jack says that you can pay 1 and tap him to attach a detached equipment you control to a unit you control. So rather than paying your power cost, you can just do it for 1 energy, which is pretty good. We've seen how effective that trade-off is with Teemo and hidden cards, as he can hide for 1 energy rather than 1 power, and I'm assuming it'll be a fairly similar level of value here. Now, he also has the ability that you can just tap him without paying energy to attach a attached equipment you control to another unit you control. So if something's already holding an equipment, you can swap it to another unit for free, which is pretty great. This adds a ton of flexibility. You don't have to worry about putting your good equipment on your bad units. You can just push it over whenever you want. And notably, this is a very different playstyle than Lucian or Master Yi. So while it is in the same colors, you're not competing for the same idea of play. And I think that's really important for letting this legend shine. Our final legend in the top row here is going to be Rumble in the Fury and Mind domains. We're competing with Kai'Sa, so it needs to be very good or very unique, similar to how Jax was. So, Rumble Mechanized Menace says that your mechs have shield, which gives them 1 might while they're defending. I'm very excited about this. Now, is this a very powerful effect? Who knows? It depends on the quality of the mechs. We currently have 5 in the game. 3 of them are in his color, being Mighty Mech for blue, and then Scrapyard Champion and Dangerous Duo in red. The latter 2 have the Legion ability, which allows you to get effects if you've played something previous. Scrapyard Champion lets you discard 2 to draw 2, and the Dangerous Duo gives another unit you control 2 might, and then the Mighty Mech is just a big lad. So there's not a ton of inherent synergy between those cards so far, or even with any of them and what Rumble does in particular, outside of them just being mechs. And if you're curious, the other 2 mechs that we have currently in the game are Blitzcrank and Adaptatron, and those are both in green. But what I really like about Rumble in general is that he's saying that there's going to be typal synergy in the game. We've had a ton of cards that have these types associated with them, but don't really have anything to do with that yet. And this type of deck building is typically one of my favorite things to do in any game, especially in Magic, like building an Angel deck or a Demon deck or a Dragon deck. Like, that's so fun to me. I like when there's a theme behind a deck building setup. And Rumble is really our first legend that facilitates that, so I'm pretty happy to see that. Now, for those curious, we have a couple other types in the game already. We already have a setup for each individual region, like Freljord, Demacia, Noxus, all of those. And then there are 12 types that we've seen in other cards. For example, we have Pirate, Trifarian, Mech, Spirit, Dragon, Poro, Bird, Fae, Yordle, Elite, Dog, and with the inclusion of Lucian in the Spiritforged set, we have the Sentinel type. Now, of note, Vayne is not a Sentinel for some reason, which is weird because that's kind of her whole thing. So maybe they just forgot to put it on her, or it was completely forgotten when they added this type to the game. We might see an errata for her, that'd be weird, but she should absolutely be a Sentinel, right? Now, as for Rumble himself though, as we were talking about, giving all of your mechs shields is very cool. It doesn't compete with what Kai'Sa wants to do at all, which I love, and in my head it kind of fits somewhere between Ahri and Viktor. Now, Ahri reduces the might of incoming attackers by 1. This buffs your own units by 1. So Ahri is really strong when the opponent attacks with several units, whereas this card will be good when you're blocking with many units. Kind of similar to how Viktor wants to build an army of little recruits, right? So again, I just think this is a very cool and simple design that opens the game up to a lot of interesting deck building around this typal synergy, as well as a more hold-the-line oriented blue and red deck. Now, Irelia is potentially one of the scariest cards in the set. Depending on the support that she gets, this could go insane. So in the Calm and Chaos domains, alongside with Yasuo in the previous set, we have Irelia Blade Dancer. When you choose a friendly unit, you may exhaust me and pay 1 power to ready it. So anytime you choose your own unit with a card effect, you can effectively pay 1 extra power to give that unit another set of movement or another action. That's pretty good. It really benefits cards that like movement. For example, the 2 Yasuo cards or Arcane, they get a lot out of this. On top of that, when you conquer, you can pay 1 energy to ready Irelia again, which means you can keep moving units back and forth. That could be very scary. Now the question is, how much power will they have access to in this deck? And are they going to be able to maintain that economy as they go for these big turns? I think this might be a good way to finish the game or build early advantage, but doing it too often will probably put you too far behind and you'll lose the game if you don't balance what you're trying to do. Regardless, I think it's going to be an extremely powerful card. Now on to Renata-Glasc in the Mind and Order domains. This is competing with Lux and Viktor for these colors, so just keep that in mind here. Again, They seem to be very varied from what we've had before. I'm not too worried about overlap. Renata-Glasc, Chem Baroness says, when you or an ally hold, you may exhaust me to play a gold gear token exhausted. So right off the bat, in case you forget what gold gear tokens are, they're basically one-use seals that will produce a power and put it into your rune pool that you can use to pay for cards or abilities. We've seen similar things in treasure tokens in Magic. It's just always really effective to mana cheat, and that's what this is. So every time that you hold a location, you can reserve one power to be used at a later turn, and that can be pretty strong, especially in blue that has access to Time Warp. If you don't have to pay the 4 power to do that, and you can just use your gear token, that's pretty strong. Now on top of that, when you're within 3 points of winning, your gold gear will also give you 1 energy. So suddenly these tokens add a lot more value than just being played for power. There are a bunch of cards that don't have power requirements, and now these can pay for those as well. Or you can double dip getting a power and an energy to pay for something that's more expensive. If I had to guess, I'm going to guess that Renata is going to be extremely powerful as we learn more about this set, and as we get more access to expensive spells. Now our Fury and Body legend will be Lucian Purifier, who's competing with Volibear for that spot. He says that your equipment each have Assault 1, and his ability is pretty simple. He gives all of your equipment Assault 1. So any of your allies that are equipped will get 1 might when they're attacking, on top of whatever the gear already gives them. So that's just pretty okay. Again, depending on the gear that we have access to, this could be very good or just fine. I think in a lot of cases, these simple abilities that just have like 1 line of text can be deceptively effective. Like think about Master Yi, for example. Your units blocking alone get 2 might. Like that's very simple, super effective. And I think Lucian could be another example like that. Sivir, another card that was revealed earlier, is in the Body and Chaos domains. So Sivir Battle Mistress is whenever you recycle a rune, you can exhaust her to play a gold gear token exhausted. And then when 1 or more enemy units die, you can ready her. So this is incredibly strong. My pick for probably one of the top 2 or top 3 legends in this set. Very similar to Renata-Glasc, that you're able to generate these gold gear tokens. However, unlike Renata, you don't have to hold a position to do that. You can just play any other card that has a power cost onto it, and those cards are pretty powerful in general, so you're benefiting from playing strong cards and mitigating any of the drawbacks. For example, Ride the Wind, one of the best cards in purple, costs a purple rune to play. Now you're getting that rune back in the form of a gear token, and potentially if you're using Ride the Wind, you can kill an opponent's unit with that card that you're moving, and then ready Sivir to generate another gear token. I think this is going to be really strong. I think orange and purple are very good colors already who do have a lot of hard times managing their rune pool, and this is going to go a long way to mitigating that. Over in the Calm and Mind domains, so competing with Ahri, we have Ornn, Fire Below the Mountain. Without reading the card, this is Ornn. I already love it. And in a set that's all about equipment, this is the most logical choice for any legend that we can have. So Ornn says you can tap him at reaction speed, add 1 power, and you can only use that to play gear or gear abilities. So it makes sense that he has an equipment-oriented ability, oriented ability, if you will. I'm not super crazy about this. Again, it depends on the gear that we have access to. Effectively, once a turn, it makes a gear cheaper, or allows you to attach a gear for free because that's part of the gear's equip ability is being paid there. And we've seen how effective Kai'Sa saving 1 power can be for her spells. So maybe this is going to be really good, but until we see more equipment, I'm hesitant to say that this is going to be extremely powerful. But again, gear-oriented set, this might be very good. But again, as the pool expands, this could be a really exciting card. And our last champion legend is going to be Rek'Sai, Void Burrower in the Fury and Order domains. So they are competing with Darius in that spot. Darius is a fairly popular deck, though like not the most popular tier, so we'll see. Rek'Sai says, when you conquer, you may exhaust me to reveal the top 2 cards of your main deck. You may play 1, then recycle the rest. So it's pseudo draw every time you conquer, and you get to draw fix a little bit. It's really similar to the lurk mechanic he had in Legends of Runeterra, which is very cool. Now, the way that this would be very good is if we get more cards like Nocturne, that when you reveal them from the top of your deck but don't draw them, you can kind of play them. That would be very strong, I think. What I'm a little bit worried about is that this is a conquer effect, and while conquering's not super difficult, I'm always a little bit worried about cards that say conquer or hold, though. Hold specifically, but conquer as well. It can sometimes be out of your control to whether or not you can get that effect off, but in a very aggressive deck, this might be very manageable. We just need some kind of payoff for checking the top of your deck. Now, this also doesn't say that you're playing that card for free, so you do need to have the energy and power available to actually play whatever you reveal. And a lot of times that means that you're swinging in with a unit without playing any spells previously to make sure you have enough resources for those cards. And that could mean that you're not using combat tricks to make your units big enough to survive, or if you are, then you can't play that card that you're showing. So this is going to be a difficult deck to play, I think. Again, dependent on what we see from the cards that were coming out in Spiritforged. But there we have it. There are all 12 of the new legends that you can play in Spiritforged. A couple of them I'm very excited for. In particular, I think I'm looking at Rumble, Sivir, Irelia, and maybe Fiora as my picks for what I'm going to enjoy playing. But all of them look very fun. Most of them seem very strong. In general, I think they are a step up from what we've had in the past, so maybe a little bit of power creep, but they all feel different enough that they're not really occupying the same space as the old decks, and I think that's something I was really worried about going into this new set. A couple other things that they've showed off is that we have the Overnumbered for Rumble Mechanized Menace and the Ornn legend as well. Both of these look very nice. The Ornn kind of reminds me of the Leona one a little bit, which I do like quite a lot. Rumble's a little bit, hard to read, but it's cool. We're also getting overnumbered versions of the seal cards for each color as well in this set, which means they're all getting reprinted, and I think they're going to be very useful, especially in gear-oriented decks. So that's pretty fair, and I mean, this looks really nice, so I'm pretty happy to see that. We're also seeing the Irelia champion unit, or at least one of them, in their overnumbered card here. So Irelia Fervent is a 5 energy 4 might unit. Little bit understated. Let's see why. They have deflect, so it becomes expensive to target her. As I've said, one of the best keywords in the game. And she says that when you choose or ready her, you can give her 1 might this turn. So in tandem with the Irelia legend, that's really strong. Again, you're playing this with purple ostensibly, so you're getting a lot of movement already, so you can really double dip on that effect. No ganking, which is maybe a little bit weird for Irelia in my head. Like, her whole thing is zipping back and forth between things, but still a very cool unit. And even just like in green in general, you have a lot of spells that target your units to buff them up. This kind of double dips on all of them to become stronger. You can almost think of her like a green version to the Ravenbloom student, although she is more expensive and has deflect. So, I mean, it's fairly comparable, I think. Then we have the Irelia overnumber for the legend card. This is gorgeous. I really like the rough brush stroke art style. It looks really nice. But that's actually it for the new cards that we've seen. Next, I want to talk about the upcoming events. So as we know, in December, we have the Houston Regional event, which is the first one in North America. That'll be December 6th, I believe, or that weekend. I'm going to be going to that. If you see me, come say hi. After that, though, Riftbound will also have an event in the TFT Paris Open. And then we don't have anything until February when Spiritforged drops, but we are going to have 2 regional events at that point as well. Those will be in Bologna, Italy, and they'll have one in Vegas as well. Again, I'm going to try to go to the Vegas one if I can get tickets. I've never been to Vegas. Sounds very fun. In April, we will have some kind of regional event in Europe. They don't say exactly where or when, but we have the same situation as well for another North American regional event. Again, no idea where. All we know is that these 2 events will be in April. And finally, there will be a regional event in May in Australia, and that is as far forward as we know as far as competitive events go. So we have at least 1 event, usually 2 every month with the exception of January, and that is going to be the month we're leading into another set, so maybe they're getting things ready. But all things considered, that's really exciting. I'm going to go to as many of these events as possible. Hopefully I see some of you there. What is more exciting, though, is the non-competitive events, and what I mean by that are sets 2, 3, and 4. So first and foremost, at some point during Q2 of 2026, we're going to be getting the Riftbound Unleashed set. This is going to be the 3rd set in the game, and it's going to have a focus on jungling, which is kind of cool. Now this is the art that they gave us for the set, and we have a couple champions here. We have Rengar, Vi, Master Yi, and LeBlanc. On top of that, Dave also mentioned Vex when he was talking about this set, which is kind of cool. I really like Vex. But I am more excited for Vi in particular. She's probably the champion I play second most in all of League, though I do play her mid like an absolute ape. But even so, a jungle theme set is very interesting. A couple champions that come to mind when I think about the jungle include things like Fiddlesticks, Kha'Zix, maybe another Lee Sin, maybe Hecarim, Udyr, or Nocturne could also make appearances. We have cards for several of these champions as well, so getting a legend for them would be a pretty sweet thing to see. Then moving into Q3 of 2026, and we have Riftbound Vendetta. So this will be a set that they mentioned will focus on opposing colors and rivalries. So in this art, you see that there's a lot of green and red because we don't have any green or red legends so far. Similarly, we'll also get things for blue and orange, and purple and yellow. All of that very exciting. I think purple and yellow, I would love to see like a Jhin in that color. I think that'd be very cool, especially since we have Akali here. You can really lean into that Ionia theme. But if we do see Akali as the face of this set, I'm assuming we're going to have things to do with Zed and Shen as well, which will be great. We could also lean into like Hui and Jhin, Kha'Zix and Rengar, who we saw in the previous set. We have Ambessa and Mel here. Mel is my most played champion on League. I play her bot lane though, again, like a bit of a bastard. I think one of the coolest parts of the League of Legends lore is the rivalries that we have between characters, and this will be a really fun set to explore all of those. And then moving into Q4, we don't have any art for this set, so we don't know what's going to come from it, but we have Radiance. And while we don't have any character art, like I said, we do have what the text for Radiance looks like. Notably for Vendetta, for example, you can see like the A and the V are shaped like Akali's weapons, right? But with Radiance, we have stars. That could mean several things. To me, it is very Mount Targon coded. We could also get things involving Aurelion Sol, Zoe, a lot of stuff like that. And I'm excited for all of that. I think those are all really fun topics. I would love to see Diana, so that would be really cool. Maybe a new Leona as well, but we'll have to wait and see. Overall, there's a ton of stuff coming over the next year for Riftbound. Just in the next 6 months, we have 7 regional events. We have 4 new sets over the next year, meaning 48 new legends that we can build our decks around, which is so exciting to me because I love this game and I love playing as many different decks as possible. And I think we're going to have a ton of chances to do that with how much content is coming our way. So let me know your thoughts on all this in the comments down below. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you found this to be as exciting as I did. Either way, I will see you in the next one.